The power of quiet self-control. True power rarely looks like power. It does not always come from speaking louder, winning arguments, controlling other people, or proving that you are right. In fact, some of the strongest people you will ever meet may appear remarkably calm. They do not need constant attention. They do not react to every insult. They do not explain themselves to everyone. They have learned something that Stoicism has taught for centuries. The person who can govern himself is far more powerful than the person who constantly tries to govern others. The first Stoic habit is pausing before reacting. Most people give their power away in the moment something triggers them. Someone insults them and they immediately respond. Someone ignores them and they become desperate for an explanation. Someone criticizes them and they spend hours defending themselves. Their emotions become controlled by other people's behavior. A Stoic chooses differently. When something happens, he creates a small space between the event and his response. That space may last only a few seconds, but it can completely change the outcome. Instead of asking, "How dare they do this to me?" he asks, "What is actually within my control right now?" That question is a weapon. Stoicism teaches you to separate what belongs to you from what does not. You cannot control someone's opinion of you. You cannot control whether someone respects you. You cannot control whether someone leaves, criticizes, misunderstands, or rejects you. But you can control your judgment, your behavior, your discipline, and your response. This is where quiet power begins. The second habit is not needing to prove your worth. A mentally strong person does not turn every conversation into a courtroom where they must prove their intelligence, success, attractiveness, or value. They understand that constant validation creates dependence. The more you need other people to confirm your worth, the more influence they have over your emotional state. The Stoic mindset moves in the opposite direction. Work on yourself quietly. Improve your character. Become more disciplined. Keep your promises to yourself. Let your actions become the evidence. You do not need to announce every transformation. You do not need everyone to understand your journey. You do not need to win every argument. Sometimes the most powerful response is simply to remain composed and continue moving forward. This does not mean becoming passive or allowing people to mistreat you. Stoicism is not weakness. It is controlled strength. A Stoic can establish boundaries without creating unnecessary drama. He can walk away without begging. He can disagree without becoming hateful. He can remain calm without surrendering his standards. The third habit is choosing discomfort voluntarily. Modern life constantly teaches us to chase convenience. But Stoicism teaches that strength grows when you deliberately practice doing difficult things. Wake up when you said you would. Finish the work when motivation disappears. Exercise when you would rather stay comfortable. Spend time alone without immediately reaching for entertainment. Every time you voluntarily tolerate discomfort, you remind yourself that discomfort does not control you. And that creates a different kind of confidence. Not loud confidence. Not performative confidence. Quiet confidence. The kind that comes from knowing, I can handle difficult situations because I have already trained myself to handle difficult moments. This is why Stoic habits can quietly make you more powerful. They do not necessarily change the world around you first. They change you. And once you change how you respond, think, endure, and act, other people's ability to control your emotional state begins to disappear. That is the beginning of real strength. Part 2. Emotional discipline and inner independence. The fourth Stoic habit is learning to remain silent when silence is stronger than words. Not every accusation deserves a response. Not every insult deserves an explanation. Not every disagreement deserves your energy. One of the most underrated forms of power is the ability to choose when not to speak. Many people talk because they feel uncomfortable with silence. They explain themselves repeatedly because they fear being misunderstood. They argue because they cannot tolerate someone having the wrong opinion about them. But Stoicism teaches a different approach. Before you speak, ask whether your words will actually improve the situation. If they will not, silence may be the wiser choice. This does not mean suppressing your thoughts or becoming emotionally disconnected. It means refusing to speak impulsively. A Stoic understands that words spoken in anger often create problems that calmness could have prevented. Imagine someone deliberately trying to provoke you. They expect an emotional reaction. They want you frustrated. They want you to lose your composure because your reaction gives them control. But you pause. You breathe. You observe what is happening. And then you decide whether a response is actually necessary. That moment of restraint is power. The fifth Stoic habit is accepting what you cannot change without surrendering your ambition. This is one of the central ideas behind Stoicism. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means accurately recognizing reality before deciding what to do next. You cannot change the past. You cannot force another person to love you. You cannot guarantee that everyone will appreciate your effort. You cannot control every outcome. You cannot prevent every disappointment. But you can decide what you do after disappointment arrives. This distinction can completely change your life. A person who fights reality constantly becomes exhausted. They spend their energy asking why something happened instead of asking what they can do now. The Stoic asks a better question. Given that this has happened, what is the strongest response available to me? That question turns frustration into action. You lose an opportunity. Learn. Someone rejects you. Move. A plan fails. Adjust. Someone walks away. Continue. You make a mistake. Take responsibility and become wiser. This is not emotional coldness. It is emotional maturity. The sixth habit is keeping your standards high while keeping your ego low. A powerful person does not need to believe he is better than everyone else. In fact, genuine strength often produces humility. You can have high standards without looking down on people. You can know your value without demanding constant praise. You can pursue success without making success your identity. You can become ambitious without becoming arrogant. This is where Stoicism becomes especially practical. The Stoic does not measure himself entirely through external achievements. Money can disappear. Status can change. Popularity can rise and fall. Physical appearance changes. Careers can end. People can leave. If your entire identity depends on these things, your confidence becomes fragile. Instead, build your identity around qualities that are within your control. Discipline, courage, honesty, patience, wisdom, responsibility, and self-control. These qualities become your foundation. When your foundation is internal, external events have less power over you. That is why one of the greatest Stoic habits is learning to need less emotional validation from the outside world. You do not need everyone to approve of your choices. You do not need to convince everyone that you are a good person. You do not need to respond to every person who misunderstands you. You do not need to chase people who have decided to walk away. Your responsibility is to live according to your principles. And this creates a powerful shift. Instead of asking, "What will they think of me?" you begin asking, "Am I proud of how I handled myself?" Instead of asking, "Did I win the argument?" you ask, "Did I maintain my character?" Instead of asking, "Did they recognize my value?" you ask, "Did I act according to my values?" That is the quiet transformation Stoicism creates. You stop trying to control the outside world and start mastering the world within you. And when your emotions are no longer easily manipulated by praise, criticism, rejection, attention, or disrespect, you become much harder to control. That is a form of power most people never develop. And it does not require you to become louder. It requires you to become steadier. Becoming difficult to manipulate. The final Stoic habit is learning to detach your peace from outcomes. This may be one of the most difficult lessons in Stoicism because human beings naturally want certainty. We want our plans to work. We want people to appreciate us. We want our efforts to produce predictable results. But life does not make those promises. You can prepare carefully and still fail. You can treat someone well and still be misunderstood. You can work hard and still lose an opportunity. You can give your best and still not receive the result you wanted. The Stoic response is not to stop caring. It is to stop confusing effort with control. Give your best effort. Make the intelligent decision. Act with courage. Then accept that the final outcome may contain factors beyond your control. This mindset creates enormous psychological freedom. When you become attached only to the result, every setback feels like a personal defeat. But when you become committed to the process, you can remain steady even when circumstances change. This is one reason Stoic habits make a person quietly powerful. You begin measuring success by your conduct rather than by circumstances. Did you remain disciplined? Did you tell the truth? Did you keep your promise? Did you control your temper? Did you respond intelligently instead of emotionally? Did you continue after disappointment? These questions are much more important than whether everything went according to plan. Another powerful Stoic habit is daily self-examination. At the end of the day, take a few quiet minutes and review your behavior. Where did you lose your patience? Where did you seek unnecessary validation? Where did fear influence your decision? Where did you waste your attention? Where did you behave according to your principles? This is not about attacking yourself. It is about improving yourself. Stoicism treats self-reflection as training. You identify weaknesses so you can work on them tomorrow. Over time, this creates something extraordinary. You become familiar with your own patterns. You recognize what triggers your anger. You recognize when your ego wants attention. You recognize when you are about to make an impulsive decision. And because you recognize the pattern earlier, you can interrupt it. That is self-mastery. The person who understands his own emotional patterns becomes much harder to manipulate. Someone tries to provoke him, but he recognizes the bait. Someone tries to flatter him excessively, but he recognizes the desire for validation. Someone threatens rejection, but he understands that another person's decision does not determine his worth. Someone attempts to create fear, but he separates the actual problem from the story his mind is creating around it. This is the deeper meaning of Stoicism. It is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming the person who decides what to do with his emotions. And when you practice these 6 habits consistently, pausing before reacting, refusing to prove your worth, deliberately practicing discomfort, choosing silence wisely, accepting what you cannot change, and examining yourself honestly, you begin developing a strength that does not require an audience. You become calmer, more disciplined, more independent, more difficult to manipulate. And perhaps most importantly, you stop wasting your life trying to control things that were never yours to control. Real power is not making everyone obey you. Real power is reaching a point where your peace, your character, and your decisions are no longer easily controlled by other people's opinions. That is the quiet power Stoicism can develop. And the most interesting part is this. People may not notice the transformation immediately. You may not look more powerful. You may simply look calmer. But inside, you know something has changed. You no longer react to everything. You no longer chase everyone. You no longer need to explain everything. You no longer collapse when things go wrong. You have learned to govern yourself. And once you can govern yourself, very few people can control you. That is the real power of Stoicism.